Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Another day of rallying in the Qs and SPY and a new high in the context of this recent trend, but we got something different today. Okay, so we'll definitely go in depth on that and we'll go ahead and get started here. All right. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for June 11th, 2019. As I mentioned on Friday, I was out yesterday, and so we were going to be picking up back up today. But nothing really changed yesterday as far as the market wrap. So if you just stuck with the approach that we've been taking, then you would have been just fine yesterday. So just to recap here, as far as the market bias, all right, we put in this gap up, ending the recent hourly downtrend. We switched to a bullish bias, right? So we've been bullish for essentially a week now, and waiting to see some kind of pivot either fail or some kind of breakout fail, and that just never occurred, right? So we got a pullback here. We were waiting to see if that pullback was going to fail, right? So that would have been your line in the sand yesterday. Instead, we got a gap up, right? And so then this morning, we finally got that break here. So this pivot is a little bit different because the pivot really triggered and got to the next high here based on the gap. Okay, so we did get the continuation of the uptrend into today's high, but what happened to that high is that it got sold, and we actually did break this pivot. Okay, so the market just closed, so we do know where the Qs and SPY are going to be ending the day here. 0.14% on the Qs, just up a nickel or a quarter there, and then the SPY, flat actually, even down 6 cents there. So basically unchanged on the Qs and SPY. All right, so gap up, and the gap up was not maintained. What's more important is not so much that we're unchanged, it's that this pivot on the hourly did not hold. Okay, so the break of today's low is initiation of the short bias. Now, we did only break this pivot by a little bit here, and even as we were watching it as it moved up, we were looking for the break and then follow through. Okay, so whether or not this difference between this low here, 288.87 and 288.18 is enough follow through, I would say is pretty questionable. Okay, so what I'm going to be going into tomorrow with is a neutral bias. Okay, so I'd like to see some follow through and then the next setup. So you do have something to work with here as far as initiating a more aggressive bias, which is under today's low, is initiation of the bearish bias. Same for the Qs. Okay, that's the earliest that I can have a bearish bias. I'm going to go with a neutral bias and then look to see if we can't get some kind of additional entry here. Okay, so we got something this morning that we haven't got in a week. So that is telling us that maybe this is the first sign of a reversal. Okay, now on the hourly here, yes, we are looking like we are gonna get a trend break on the hourly, but I think what's gonna make this sell-off here, the next sell-off that we get, more muted or choppy and not as nice of a sell-off as perhaps we got here, right, is that the daily and the weekly and the monthly are not as bearish as they were. Okay, so here's the Qs. The Qs have triggered a weekly buy setup based on today's gap. So weekly buy setup, series of higher lows in the context of an uptrend. Okay, and then the monthly, right, did the retracement bouncing off the rising 20 here. Okay, on the monthly. So the hourly does look lower. Now this is going to be more critical, right, for day traders like us who are just looking for what are the next hours and days, right? As opposed to if you're looking at a daily chart, you're talking about the next days and weeks. and then the weekly chart, weeks and months, and so on and so forth, right? So for us as day traders, it's that much more important to be precise and to be aware of the market bias during these kind of times. And what I mean by these kind of times are we don't have a lot of gaps. I already looked at the earnings list. There's like a few names, Dave & Buster's maybe being the most liquid, which is not really all that great for day trading. Not a lot of people reporting earnings. So our expectation for the number of good gaps that we are going to have tomorrow is pretty low. So unlike what things will be like in a month from now, mid-July, where we have a lot of things earnings, there will be more things on their own page. So if you were around today, for instance, right, a lot of the gap ups got sold. Most of the gap ups got sold. And then in the afternoon, we got a little bit of a rally. And so a lot of the weak items, right, got bought. Now, there will always be things like the LOVE, which had a very, very nice gap down, right, and is going to close at the lows regardless of whatever the market does, right? So there will be some, but the thing is will they be tradable? Will you have them available? And then, will you catch them in time? So right now, more than as much as it's going to be at any point in this year, the market bias matters, okay? So I wanted to make sure that we go over this in depth. So like I said, the weekly, the monthly do not suggest weakness. We have the hourly trend break, and then the daily. We do have a bit of a sell setup here, which is a series of higher lows, but you can see that we had a pretty strong move up. So this is not the kind of sell setup that's in the context of a well-established downtrend, because it actually did get past the previous lower high there, okay, on the Qs and SPY. All right, so we're back to a little bit of time frame conflict. We had, when the monthly and weekly were extended up and we had this downtrend starting, we had a little over a week of selling, and we just followed the trend down. And then on the way up again, right, we had started to get time frame alignment again, and everything looked higher, and then we had a week of buying there. So we're kind of in this similar inflection point right now to see what the market wants to do. I think if the market does continue, we are able to take out today's high, it won't be easy to initiate the bullish bias back on, just because we've been rallying for so many days. All right, so I think it is even healthier for the market to come in now and do a higher low if it wants to continue back up to the highs. Okay, so just be aware that the reason I bring up different time frames and different expectations is that when we initiate the bearish bias here, based on the hourly, say we break to today's low and we get a sell-off, it's not saying that this is the top is in at least, or the most recent high for the rest of the year, or the top is in for the year, or anything like that, right? What we have here is a recent uptrend on the daily and the hourly, right? And that is looking like it needs to take a rest. Okay, so it's come in underneath today's low. You can start a bearish bias. I'm going to be neutral, see if we get follow through, and then the next one. Okay, and then if this comes in, we'll do the same thing that we did with the last downtrend that we got, right? And just follow it until we break the trend. Okay, all right, so glad to be back. Hopefully you guys were just fine yesterday without the additional market wrap, but nothing really changed. We just stuck with it, and we didn't get any kind of end of the hourly uptrend. And now finally today we're looking like maybe that is now in question, and we may actually break. So that's what we'll be looking for tomorrow, and then hopefully we get a little bit more to work with as far as gaps go. If not, then the market bias will be that much more important. Okay, and I expect that to be the case for the next few weeks. Okay, I hope you did well today. If not, took it easy. I didn't really see a lot of good setups today, so there were no calls from me, no official calls from me. Going into tomorrow with a neutral bias and with minimal gaps, we'll see. I'm not gonna force it. I don't think this is the time to do so, to really over trade. I think that's kind of the going to be the downside or the trap if you start to trade out of boredom or just because there's lack of setups or settling for lower quality setups. Okay, so just be aware of that going into tomorrow. When I think there are a lot of good setups, there are a lot of good things to call. I let you know. I call it how it is, how I think, based on what I see. But I think just right now, not that many good setups, not many things moving all that much, and the market is king right now. Okay? All right. So we'll see what the market gives us tomorrow. I think you know where the line in the sand is. You know what we're looking for the rest of the week, if the market wants to pick a direction. And so we'll see what happens. All right. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great evening.